Welcome. Please join me in the responsive reading. Let us name this house a sanctuary, a crucible. May we be the agents of freedom's calling, protecting. Let us be guided in this hour by wisdom's powerful invitation to be. Good morning. My name is Naomi Brownsmith. I am very new to Fountain Street Church. I became a member in December. I only started attending last fall, rather intermittently, but Fountain Street was like an old friend that had always existed and I just never knew was there. And so it seemed only appropriate for both my husband and I to join. I'd like to start by reading you a poem about who I am and where I'm from. I'm from blotted ink and worn piano keys, open sky country in timbered Idahoan logs. I'm from Montana mountains and Michigan basements, open windows and unlocked doors. I'm from broken families and broken hearts, water baptism and children who speak in tongues. I'm from Charlie's perseverance and Nancy's lies, self-destructiveness and reckless hope. I'm from a father and daughter sharing coffee under the stars, fish guts, black dregs, and complete contentment. I'm from musty cardboard boxes collecting dust and memories, Shakespearean sonnets, and Sherlock Holmes. I'm from mud pies, velvet green cornfields, and chocolate lab puppies, IMDb credits, abracadabra, and the value of nothing. I'm from Bob the engineer and Val the artist, a bright red truck smelling of sawdust and glazed clay forms. I'm from courageous and cowardice, the burn of tobacco on my tongue and bourbon in my lungs. I'm from bright vintage dresses and heavy Jinko jeans, grass stains from football, and indestructible lacquered nails. I'm from empty cupboards and a full offering plate, a wanderer, an instigator, and a dreamer. I'm from a limitless horizon at 10,000 feet, a flower shooting up through the crack in the pavement. When I was 20 years old, I went to Bible college, and while I was there, my then husband at the time and myself became the leaders of the Moral Issues group, which involved going every Saturday to the abortion clinics in Dallas, Texas. We were there with a group mostly to observe and to pray, and part of what I did was just keep track of how many people went in and out. Part of the group that we were with, strategy and approach, was to have really large banners that had words and graphic images that were meant to create a really strong emotional response, which they inevitably did. But one week there was a group coming through that were part of a 5K, and it was mostly families, mothers and fathers with their children. And there was something in me that stopped at that sight, that didn't know how to put into words what I was feeling, but knew that I thought there wasn't the right approach, that we could do more, we could do better, that it wasn't love. And so that started a long process for me of questioning inside of limits that didn't allow questioning at the time. Here I am at Fountain Street Church that has a choice fund. Where I'm from, most people can't understand how I could even stomach that. And the truth is, I still don't know how I feel about abortion because where I'm from has told me that that's simply not acceptable. I believe that life is sacred, but I don't think that I could put myself in the shoes or the position to have to decide, much less be told by someone I can't decide, that I don't have a choice. I believe all life is sacred. The mother's life, the child's life, LGBTQ lives, the Black lives in our community, the life of our universe. I don't know nearly enough about the realities of all of these things to say I know. I don't. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to learn and to grow from all of you because you all offer something that I don't have and that I don't know. I'm here because I want to belong to a place that's not interested in defining me by where I'm from, by defining anyone by where they're from, but that is interested in this present moment and the connection we have looking into each other's eyes, singing together, joining our hearts together. My husband and I now have a 2.5-year-old son, and when I found out I was pregnant, I realized there was no way I could bring him up in the mindset of where I was from, because I wanted something so much more for him. We brought him to FSC because we want him to belong to a community of faith, very much this community of faith, that teaches him to use his mind to reason, his heart to love, and his life to give. Here at Fountain Street, we found all of those things, and it's been like a balm, healing revival in my life. This morning, I want you all to know that you are loved, you are valued, your voice is heard here, you belong here. Thank you.
Lord our God, mind is clearer now. At last, all too well, I can see where we all soon will be. If you strip away the myth from the man, you will see where we all soon will be. Jesus, you started to believe the things they say of you. You really do believe this talk of God is true. And all the good you've done will soon get swept away. You've begun to matter more than the things you say. Listen, Jesus, I don't like what I see. All I ask is that you listen to me. And remember, I've been your right-hand man all along. You have set them all on fire. They think they found the new Messiah, and they'll hurt you if they find they're wrong. I remember when this whole thing began. No talk of God, then we called you a man. And believe me, my admiration for you hasn't died. But every word you say today gets twisted around some other way. And they'll hurt you if they think you've lied. Nazareth, your famous son, should have stayed a great unknown, like his father, carving wood he'd have made good. Tables, chairs, and oaken chest would have suited Jesus best. He'd have caused nobody harm, no one alarm. Listen, Jesus, prepare for your race. Don't you see we must keep in our place? We are occupied. Have you forgotten how far down we are? Oh, I am frightened by the crowd. Oh, we are getting much too loud, and they'll crush us if we go too far. If we go too far. Listen, Jesus, to the warning I give. Please remember, I want us to live. But it's sad to see our chances weakening with every hour. All your followers are blind. They've too much heaven on their minds. It was beautiful, but now it's sour. Yes, it's all gone sour. Listen, Jesus, to the warning I give. Please remember, I want us to live. Come on, come on. He won't listen to me, no. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's all gone sour.
I have often said that when people ask me what Fountain Street Church is like, I say, we're the church of Forrest Gump. You never know what you're going to get. But all of it is good. And that's the interesting part. We come in with assumptions about what is appropriate for church, what is useful, what is spiritual, and we find those boundaries challenged at every turn, which is wise. Because we can all get stuck inside of places to think, well, this is religious and this is not, and this is nice and this is bad. And making that difficult is really our job here, making it difficult to make those assumptions. There are good things, there are bad things, but they take more time to figure out than perhaps we usually give them. Some words to salt. Shall we say, leaven the loaf before I salt it. In the Gospel of Mark today, Christians are reminded that he called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, if any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? On the other side of the world, hundreds of years before, Gautama Siddhartha, called the Buddha, said, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. Anais Nin observed that the knowledge that we are responsible for our actions and attitudes does not need to be discouraging, because it also means we are free to change our destiny. One is not in bondage to the past, which has shaped our feelings, to race, inheritance, or background. All this can be altered if we have the courage to examine how it formed us. And finally, Philip Pullman, one sentence from his popular book, The Golden Compass. We are all subject to the fates, but we must act as if we are not, or die of despair. This is the second Sunday in Lent, and on the second Sunday in Lent in 1945, the Marines lifted the flag over Mount Suribachi, a picture that was taken that became a famous icon of the war, became a monument in Washington, D.C. The man who took the picture died 9 days later. Duncan Littlefair was holding his first great Lenten series here, having started in 1944, and he was talking about the nature of God all during Lent, in which in his second sermon he wrote, is religion a natural thing or is it a supernatural thing? That sums up the whole struggle. And I venture, he said, to prophesy that this will be the fighting line of religion for generations to come. In honor of that first momentous Lenten series, I'm taking up that same theme on my own. I'm not going to report on his work. You can read it yourself. You hear mine, which I know does not hold perhaps as high up, but history or posterity will judge that. Now, I have to point out that such a series as I'm preaching is inevitably rather abstract and intellectual and perilously close to being academic, which means if you did not have enough sleep last night, you are hereby permitted to take a little snooze. But sermons, in all honesty, should be more concrete. They should be something about your life being lived today, not abstractions that are purely in the ether. In other words, the distance you heard between the two pieces of music is the precise distance I must cover from the lofty heights of angelic voices coming down from the balcony, which piece I requested, and I am immensely grateful. It is a beautiful work from Mendelssohn's Elijah, down to the stirrings and the torments of Judas Iscariot, who will make a choice momentous and real. My challenge is twofold, each and every Sunday, but particularly this Lent, to engage your minds in questions so lofty and abstract that they are unanswerable yet undeniable, and also to speak to your lives as they're being lived today. I do not know whether I will succeed in each and every sermon or in any of them, but that's why I always utter that famous prayer, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be found true in thy sight, thou who art my rock and my redeemer, because only through the powers larger than my own can a spirit be found in your heart that hears the Spirit in mine, and your lives be touched. Last week I said that faith begins with a hunch we all make every day when we get out of bed that life matters. Every day we decide to live. We do so whether we notice it or not. We mostly don't think about it, but the reality is that we choose to live every day. And most of us, when faced with death, would try to find a way to put it off at least a little longer. Queen Elizabeth I, as she lay dying in Richmond Castle years ago, said, "A half a kingdom for an hour." That act of believing life matters is essential to everything else. It is the act of faith that we all commit every day, whatever else you believe. We decide that life matters, in fact, before we have any reason to know why it matters, or even if it matters. All religion, all the books, all the libraries, the temples, the cathedrals, the priests, the rituals, the power, all of them are attempts to find out if and why life matters. Speaking of taking steps, have you ever thought about walking? Probably not so many of you. You move a leg, and for a hair, a split second, you're actually standing on one leg, and then you lean into that leg, but not so far that you can't bring the other one behind you. It's an art that must be mastered by every toddler who learns it without any coaching whatsoever, because they learn to walk before they learn to talk. Reminds me of that famous dictum of the parent that said, when you're a new parent, all you're interested in is when they'll walk and when they'll talk, and once they do, all you do is wonder when they'll sit down and shut up. Those who gods would punish are granted their prayers, as Oscar Wilde said. But I want you to think about walking for a moment, because we do it so often, we do it so automatically, until there's a moment, and we will all face it sooner or later, when we can't walk or walk as reliably or as easily, and then suddenly we have to relearn it or be more mindful of it. I've spent time with adults over my years, whether due to a stroke or an accident or simply the incrustations of age, when walking becomes a very conscientious process. And you learn again how difficult it is to do it well. They have to pay the utmost attention to every aspect. And I bring this up because when we think about ultimate things, gods and the like, what we're doing is we're taking a very, very deliberate walk through our minds, that if we do not do it with care, we will fall over, we will stumble, and if we do it in a hurry, we may tumble off a cliff. So if I'm going in a rather slow and tedious fashion, it's only because we are learning to walk with our spirits here. And if we do it too rapidly, something will get bruised, if not actually broken. In a sense, I'm asking you to think as slowly as a baby walks, and without anyone on the other side saying, "Come on, come on." So I've described the first step we all take of the Spirit, that step that says life matters. I don't know why. I'm not even sure that it does, but I'd rather bet on the fact that it does. And the next step is just as small, especially compared to all those big things I've talked about and we think religion is about. We want to get up there and walk along, but this is an important step unto itself. If we take it wrongly, we will find ourselves going down a path we wish we had not gone. So let's get started. Last week, I observed in my sermon that when life goes well, we think that's the way it's supposed to be. And when life goes badly, we think, well, that must be the way things are supposed to be. When we do well and do good, we think we earned it. When we have bad things happen, we think there must be a reason. But both of these are ways of explaining why life turned out the way they did. And both of them are forms of determinism. Call it fate or providence, or the idea that everything is destined to turn out all right. We love the idea that somehow things are kind of already arranged. It helps to assuage the sense of unknowing. It gives meaning to what is apparently random and terrifying. But if everything happens for a reason, if it's God's will, then did we actually make those choices in the first place? I say this in the American heart of Calvinist thinking where double predestination is as a fact of life, not just a doctrine. But I'm here to question the legitimacy, if not the appeal of that doctrine. Because if everything happens to a reason, however comfortable that is, it turns out to be a moral vice. V-I-S-E, not V-I-C-E. It squeezes us. This being Lenten, thanks to our musical experience a few moments ago, let's think about Judas Iscariot, the bad man of all Christianity. If you go to the bottom of Dante's Inferno, there he is being chewed up by Satan alongside the Prophet Muhammad forever and ever, the ultimate betrayer. But if everything happens for a reason, if Jesus had to die in order for us all to be saved, does that not put Judas in the odd position of being one of the good guys? If he didn't choose it, he's an inadvertent saint. If he did choose it, he's a hero. We reject this conclusion. It was a rank act of betrayal. It really was. We know from personal experience that people do those things. We know that people are harmed, that people do perish, that pain and suffering are the authors. We are the authors of plenty of pain and suffering. So as comforting as the thought that everything happens for a reason is, we must let go of it right now. That's the step. We cannot step toward determinism because it is a slope that becomes steeper and steeper. Either bad things are preordained and thus not bad if you're a determinist, or, and this is just as hard, we have free will. And bad stuff happens for no reason at all, except that someone did it, or it just happened to you. The piano fell out of the window, and yes, it fell upon you for no good reason. You got a disease for no good reason. And these are things we don't like to contemplate, but given the two, which do you think is the one we can live with best? These are the two options. I see no others. We must decide the world is either free or determined. Determinism, I agree, is appealing. It dissatisfies our desire to know why things happen, but this hunger should not lead us into the temptations of determinism. The great poet Rainer Maria Rilke famously said, "Be patient with all that is unsettled in your heart." And I'm inviting you to do the same. If this is hard for you, too bad. Let's learn to be patient with the difficult. Perhaps if we look at reality more carefully, very slowly, we can find that free will is quite a reasonable place to be, even if it means some things may not happen for a reason. Let's start with the idea that perhaps the universe really is, in some sense, free. Not politically free, but a more basic thought that your choices, my choices, our choices are actually our choices, that they have real outcomes, and that the future is not entirely determined. The good news is, you do a good deed, you get the credit. The bad news is, you do a bad deed, you get the blame. It really is yours. Now, beware, this is a place where religion tries to have its cake and eat it too. They sometimes say that God makes all the choices, but one of his choices was to give us free will, so it's kind of a almost free will. It's very impressive and attractive, but really that's a way to defend the idea of God before we actually need to talk about God. It's a defensive argument, not a progressive one. I believe in Occam's razor. Do you know the concept of Occam's razor? It says basically that the simplest solution that meets all the circumstances is more likely to be the best answer than a more complicated solution. So I'm looking for a simpler answer. Let's say, just for a moment, and I'm speculating here, that freedom is just the way things are in reality, kind of like gravity or electricity. It's in the DNA of reality, as it were. Now, ancient religions kind of got a piece of this. They had a god for thunder, a god for rain, a god for this, a god for that. And your basic hope was that you would keep them from knocking you down. But you could not, in any sense, predict what they had to say, and all you were trying to do was avoid getting smacked around by reality. We today, of course, know that all those forces are natural forces. There's no one tugging a string or throwing a thunderbolt. But even though we can now predict the weather, say, much better than we can before, anyone notice that we didn't get the snow we were told we were going to get? All those supercomputers still can't tell us everything that's going to happen. In other words, the more we know, the better we are at guessing, but not knowing. And that's important, and that's where I want to go. That the world is somehow orderly, but also kind of not orderly, and we can't predict everything. We can only predict to some extent. For example, there are choices I make that are very real. I decided to take you up on your offer to become your minister. That was a real choice. You made the choice. That's a real choice. Maybe we're paying for it, but that's the real choice we made. However, I cannot today decide to be 7 feet tall and play for the Detroit Pistons. That's an unavailable choice. I can practice the piano 4 and 5 times a week. I will never be a concert pianist. Some choices are available. Others are not. That doesn't mean the ones that are real aren't real. It just means I don't have every choice available. That's the way the world seems to be arranged. And somehow, because of that, the world holds together. It kind of sticks together. It doesn't go flying apart into 1,000 bits. It is cohesive. And this is my point right now. When people say they want a world in which God is making a reason for everything, I'm thinking, you're overreaching, friend. You don't need that. What you want is to know that the world sticks together, that it holds together, that it doesn't fly apart. We want a cohesive reality, one that's coherent. We want to know that we live inside of a reality that's not going to fall apart one way or the other. We don't need a reason for everything. We just want everything to be there, and that's fine. We have taken the next step. It may seem that we've moved just a very, very little bit, but you know what baby steps are. They're very, very short. But we've taken a decisive step. Something that will change everything, shape everything we do from this point on. Now, I'm going to remind you, a little asterisk here in the middle of my sermon, that I cannot say for sure if I'm right. That makes me different from 99.7% of all other preachers. And let me point out that the only measurement I am counting is whether a religious belief lines up with reality enough that you don't have to stretch your credulity to make it work. If you are cutting corners and making excuses and explaining how God fits into a triangular space even though he or she is shaped like a circle, you're working too hard. Any religious idea that asks you to ignore what we all know from experience is probably not likely to be right. Not likely. It didn't say it couldn't be right, but it's not a good bet. Any idea of God that asks you to discount what you know is true, to doubt your common experience, to manipulate reality, to wedge its ideas in, that's probably not a good one. You would reject that. And here's the cool part. I was reading Duncan Littlefair. He and I are exactly in the same place. Any idea of God that says you must stop believing in reality in order to believe in God is pulling a fast one on you, and you'd better figure that out. Now, please, I remind you, nothing I have said says that I know for sure about anything. None of us actually know if life matters. None of us actually knows if there's a reason if it does. None of us really knows whether the universe is free or it's determined. But we are saying that our experience of it, our knowledge of ourselves, seemed to favor the idea that life matters, that something larger than ourselves is of value, and that somehow this unpredictable universe is also cohesive. This uncertainty bothers some religious people. I think we should be proud of it. Most of the choices we make in life are not 100% choices. Uncertainty seems to be innate to everything. And in fact, if everything was a done deal, why would you want to do it anyway? Isn't the fun in what you don't know is coming? All that we can try to do is understand life a little better so we can make better choices, not perfect ones. So in essence, friends, religion, at least the liberal version, is a constant bet. It's a wager that reality has a fair amount of freedom in it, that we matter, that life matters. It's a bet. Now, I'm going to give you some good news to go with that. One thing about a universe that has freedom in it, something we rarely notice because it's so obvious, is that unlike a determined universe, in a free universe, new stuff happens. Think about it. If it were all determined, there'd be nothing new at all. Every child would look exactly alike because there'd be no point in having a different one, would there? And yet, people come and people go, and no one of them is ever identical to the other one. Isn't that phenomenal? Even when they're twins, they end up being different. All those new human beings that happen every day have thoughts, new thoughts, unheard thoughts before. They do new things. They come up with new ideas. And without those new people, we would only have one book, one song, one picture, one building, one dinner. Life would be an immense bore. Any beliefs we want to form about God or anything else will hold on to this diversity, this complexity, this novelty. And that's why we have to be suspicious of religions that are done and finished and unchanging. Yes, they might be right, but the odds are not good. The smart money remembers that religions that defend their perfection have also defended the earth at the center of the universe, and that humans were plopped down in the middle of a garden and surrounded by animals that emerged from the ooze. Determinisms are generally not very good at adapting to facts. But you're thinking, wait a minute, Fred, you're going a little far here. What you're saying is humans have free will, but maybe free will is kind of everywhere? That's exactly what I'm saying. Even things that don't have minds are making choices. Do you have a cat or a dog? Does it like one of you at home better than the other? You know it does. Do you know that it likes some food and other food it doesn't like? Animals make choices. They may not be high, lofty, philosophical choices, but they do make choices. They have a measure of free will. What I'm trying to tell you is that free will may be more elegantly comprised in human beings, but it, like the famous joke, turtles all the way down, free will goes to the very bottom of the universe. Try to find an electron that can stay in one place. Try to find a quark that will stay put for a split second. It won't be there. It's moving all the time. So yes, even inanimate things are riddled with chance and capacities for change. You might say that life is nothing but chemistry with an attitude. This freedom of which I speak is not exceptional to humans. It is pervasive of reality. It might be more in us and less in others, but it's everywhere. And if you think you just took 2 small steps, that was the biggest step you have probably taken in a long time. The entire universe is riddled with free will, and choices are being made in some sense all the way down to the microscopic, nanometric, atomic basis. Choices in the sense of yes or no, but left or right, up or down, fast or slow, are happening all the time, and yet it somehow holds together. If there was a miracle, that's it. Someone once said the universe is the biggest free lunch that ever was. It is. In a few sentences, I've gone from saying we have free will to saying everything is free. And I've also said not only that, but somehow it all holds together, that there is one reality as messy as we can possibly imagine. It's dynamic and changing, even as it stays together and unified. Martin Luther King spoke of a single garment of destiny, and that's what I mean. A tapestry of reality that spins and unravels over and over again, you and me in it, down to the microscopic and the nanometric. Do you realize that the glass in those stained glass windows is moving right now? Gravity is pulling it downward. You can't tell it, but it's happening because glass is a liquid, even when it isn't moving. The world is constantly moving, and we're inside of it. All I've done so far, just to make sure we're clear, is say reality is more likely a coherent but dynamic thing within which we sense something valuable is at work. We sense that in ourselves every morning when we wake up, and then look around and see that it is not ours alone, and we discover that the universe is riddled with this capacity for power and meaning. And so we reason that something important is at work, even if we don't know what it is. It includes us and everything else. And though we have no objective proof, we bet on this every blessed day. And I submit that every idea of God, every religion, every edifice of faith is at bottom simply this bet that life matters and it's worth rolling the dice every blessed day. Now, chasing out how that looks in religion is what I'm going to do for the rest of this series. But I think I've at least kept you from going to sleep for a few minutes. And I count that as a success in itself. So wish me luck. We'll find God in this mess somewhere, but it won't be the one you were looking for. I can guarantee it. Amen and amen.